All right, good afternoon. We're back to the Credit and Collection News Quadcast, which is our new saying for the group of four that we have on our quadcast. Stephanie Jackman, Joanne Needleman, Rob Grafrath, and of course, John McNamara. We're here today to talk about, again, what's going on in the credit and collection news industry. And we're going to start off with one of the hot topics that has just happened. And our friend Governor Gavin Newsom has just appointed former CFPB Director Rohit Chopra to lead the California New Business Consumer Services Agency, which is a mouthful, which is a consolidated state super regulator. How can I say that? 3 times fast. Which is focused on consumer business protection, including financial services, healthcare, overseeing boards, bureaus. I think it's an umbrella agency that oversees everything from banking, financial services, healthcare, technology, and consumer-facing industries. So with that being said, I'm going to turn this over to the Quadcast experts, and let's see what they have to say about all this stuff. And John, I know we have talked a lot about Rohit in previous Quadcasts, so I'm going to let you go first because I'm sure you've got an opinion on this hire and what's going to happen in California.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you a story about how, and in this story, Rohit Chopra plays the role of my Cocker Spaniel named Chance, and I will play Gavin Newsom. And this is literally in my really messed up pea-sized brain. When I heard this news, this is how I reacted. We once had a dog when we lived in Atlanta that decided it wanted to bite about every 8th person. So whenever my kids had friends over, we would put the dog in its kennel and keep it out. So I'm reading the Wall Street Journal upstairs, and I hear a bunch of screaming from downstairs. My daughter's screaming for me to come down, and I walk into the kitchen, and there are 8 of her friends in a semicircle, and Chance is standing there looking at each one of them, figuring out which one he is going to go and bite. And so I promptly snatched him up and put him into his kennel. So Rohit's got a big remit. I mean, this is fascinating because he's going to want to do so much and go after so many. I mean, his remit includes housing, it includes cannabis banking, it includes healthcare,
horse racing,
fintech, horse racing. And fintech and horse racing is probably going to be stretched into gambling, like app gambling. So there's a lot that Rohit's going to want to do, but much like the role of John with Chance, Gavin Newsom is going to have to, he's going to have to moderate that because fintech generates so much money for anyone that wants to be the governor for anybody that wants to be the president of the United States and or the governor of California that Rohit's can't, I think Rohit's going to want to do some things that he can't do. Now, I will say this, Rohit Chopra did an admirable job of aligning himself with Hillary Clinton. And as you may recall, when Hillary ran for president in 2016, Rohit left the CFPB, and I think he would have been in charge of her transition team. He would have had a very powerful role with her. I think the biggest headline here is Rohit has aligned himself with Gavin Newsom, who is, in my mind, is very likely to run for president of the United States. And more about that later, but I don't want to overly consume too much time when I've got folks like Rob and Stephanie and Joanne on the line.
Well, John, did Rohit align himself with Governor Newsom, or did Governor Newsom align himself with Rohit and Elizabeth Warren on that wing of the party? I see it that way. I see it that way. I think that if he wants to run for president, he needs to get the AOCs and the Bernie Sanders and the Elizabeth Warrens into his camp, because another friend of mine and I did a webinar on this last week. And, Newsom has tried to walk many streets to appeal to many people, what he has to do to run for president. And it wasn't but a year ago that he used to be on Bill Maher all the time saying there's too much regulation in California. And Bill Maher was talking about he wanted to put like a hot tub or something in his house, and there was 36 regulations or more that he had to go through to do that. And And Newsom's like, that's wrong. We can't do that. So what he's done here, in my opinion, is create an even bigger bureaucracy. I see the press releases of how this is going to be more efficient. First of all, the press releases say we're doing such a great job. Well, if you're doing such a great job, why do a reorg? Well, now reorg, okay, and it is, to me, a massive bureaucracy that is not, in my opinion, going to make things easier. And I said this last week, I feel really sorry for consumers and small business people in California, because this is not, they've been screaming for a more streamlined process. You now have one big super regulator on top of every bad vice that you want to say: gambling, horse racing, cannabis, payday lending, buy now, pay later, you name it. And so to me, I think this is how Gavin Newsom wants to pull in that party into his tent, more than it's Rohit trying to line. Now, look, they'll work together, and if he becomes president, it certainly means great things for Rohit, but I see no upside to this at all.
I think so. I mean, I respect that position, and it's an interesting one, and only time will tell. I think the buyer power isn't with Rohit. I think it's with Gavin Newsom. Rohit didn't have like a big job immediately after being fired by Donald Trump. I mean, this is played out over what, 5 or 6 months. I think some of the Democratic Party realized that some of the blood and viscera of the CFPB's closing is on his hands. I mean, I think that many in the Democratic Party, not many, definitely not most, realized that some of his measures were so extreme that they almost had to prompt a backlash. And by the way, I want to give a plug for my former boss, David Silberman, and former colleague Jason Brown. They have a piece authored through Brookings Institute about a way forward for the CFPB. It was just released last week. It was incredibly thoughtful, and it actually offers some practical ways to go forward. That is a must read for everybody. Steve, I would encourage you highlight that on your space. But again, Joanne, back to your point. And the other thing is this: Joanne and I both could be right, and that could be that Rohit was picked as a shiny object to placate, extremely consumer friendly Democrats, and to show that he isn't too businessy. But for all we know, in the back rooms, I mean, Gavin Newsom could have quietly reassured the big banks and the fintechs that, like, hey, I'm going to keep this Cocker Spaniel on a tight leash.
I hope you're right.
Yeah, no, I do too. But I violently agree with Joanne that net it's not a good thing for responsible actors in the private sector. And one other point: this is a really complicated organization, and it's been my experience, Rohit is an incredible ideas guy, but not a great manager. I mean, this is a job for somebody that's really good at managing, and he's going to have to manage the heads of those agencies in a way that doesn't alienate them. And again, with career staff at the CFPB, he definitely alienated a lot of those folks.
Well, I'm not a betting man, and if I were, then I'd probably be in even worse shape right under Chopra. But I'm not going to bet on him just kind of being a guy assigned to the seat because we're trying to align politically and get the right names on our little mini CFPB that we built over here in California. He's a heavy-handed guy, and I think he's going to come in with his heavy hand and start whacking and enforcing and strangling folks using his new power over at the new agency.
But he's got 7. So to me, and again, I know I'm from the Midwest, but my cynicism is worthy of anybody from Philadelphia or New York or Atlanta. He's got 7 months. And the only future governor of California that wouldn't fire him immediately for just running rampant would be Katie Porter, and she's got like 0 chance of being governor. The 2 Republicans would most certainly fire him. And the Democrat would fire him if he was causing problems. So, and again, it goes back to this. He's got this target-rich environment, and Rohit is a very ambitious young man. You saw that at FTC, you saw that at CFPB. I'll work this back in too. In aligning himself with Newsom, who's a Catholic, and aligning himself with the Pope, who is presumably a Catholic, that statement the Pope issued on AI was incredible. And listen, that resonates with a lot of people. That too much of the data is concentrated in the hands of the techno bro oligarchs, and the dehumanization of us. And then basically taking AI out of the decision making on anything that's irrevocable, like letting it decide, whom to kill. Rohit has a passion for the surveillance economy, data privacy, and again, back in my pea-sized brain, AI is really all about data governance and data privacy. It's how that data is collected, how it's used, how it might be monetized, how it might be weaponized. I mean, this is a very Newsom thing that I think plays well with the base on both sides. I mean, it's a populist issue that Elon Musk has way too much power, and he's used it irresponsibly. And certainly my staff and I sort of saw that up close and personal.
So he's not going to have enough time to get up to speed to really do too much damage, right?
Well, yeah, well, this could be a bad thing for debt collectors. I mean, debt collectors, they are the ones that constantly have to, in deregulatory times, they never get a break. And so I could see him going. There are safe things to go after, and those could be like debt collections, debt buying, credit repair, areas like that are just safe that sort of always play well with both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, it'll be the populist regulations that we've talked about, even states
and affordability,
like Texas, with the populist. Yeah, affordability,
all over jump fees. That anything that you can draw a straight line to affordability. I think one of the things that not saved, but there's a somewhat attenuated line between affordability and debt collections that sort of feels like it goes together. But a much shinier thing would be like the fees associated with concert tickets, and credit card late fees, and maybe fees associated with closing in real estate in California. Again, bottom line is people can't afford to buy. No one can afford to buy a house anymore, except it seems like the top 20%.
I'm kind of looking at it from as a Californian and somebody who pays $2 more a gallon per gas and is now, you're looking at companies like Chevron who are pulling out of California and yet, they're actually advertising in California with pictures of Gavin Newsom basically saying, with the little hose wrapped around saying, hey, look who's screwing up your finances. And it's $2 more per gallon only in California. And you can't blame Trump because Trump covers 50 states. Newsom covers one state. So it's like a swing by Newsom, if he's going to be president and he only wants to be president, that's his goal, his dream, his whatever. What he's done to California and what he's created is a mess. And now he's fighting with corporations. So he brings in someone like Chopra who loves to control. I mean, you saw this with the CFPB, John. He wanted to expand CFPB control over everything. So is this a way that, he can now say, hey, look, I'm presidential because I'm bringing in a guy that can control everything and is going to take all the prices that we're paying in California and reduce them all down. But nothing is going to really happen within the next year. And we'll have a new governor by then. And whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, I mean, I can't predict the future. But I can honestly say that the Democrats are ready to repeal the automatic top two vote getters are no longer the two people that will go on. They want to go back to, if by chance it's two Republicans, they don't want that to happen. So it's amazing how quickly they have what they call a disaster plan, just in case they run into that situation where they're going to have a Republican governor. So is this his way to basically say, hey, look, I will do whatever it takes to be president. So therefore I'm bringing in a guy that I think will improve my standings, and at the cost of whomever. In the case, bringing in the former, CFPB director. Maybe that's his swing for the fences to become president.
Yeah, it does feel more political than policy driven.
And it's going to
You
be
may be-
interesting to see. So in this, I was reading some of the Hoover Commission is the one who kind of developed this. This has been going on for a year, by the way, which I knew nothing about. Maybe you did, Steve, but this has been going on for a year. And he's got a $6 to $10 million budget for this, and which includes the appointment of 3 additional deputies. So he's going to surround himself with politicos, which is exactly what he did at the CFPB, which did not work out well. And it's going to be interesting to see who he brings in, because if he brings in a Seth Froman, forget it. I mean, light the match now. I mean, that's all I can.
Yeah, I just told somebody that the other day is the thing to watch is who does he surround himself with? And he surrounded himself with the CFPB with a tiny circle of very like-minded individuals. So there was an echo chamber. I remember, and I really applauded Cordray for this. Cordray had, he had some very sort of like-minded, very relatively, in my mind, young folks, very bright folks around him. But he also had somebody like a Chris Lipset, who was a very seasoned attorney. Chris Lipset had actually, I think they may have defended like GC Services, the at the time the big debt collector. And then Raj Date is one of the brightest individuals around, and in my mind could have easily been the first director, but he was the first deputy director. Very, very business minded, very, very knowledgeable.
Exactly.
And again, starting at the earliest time of the Bureau, if you worked in private sector, you were sort of tainted, I think, in Senator Warren's mind. I mean, Raj worked at Deutsche Bank, I think, before he came in. Otherwise, maybe he might have been the first director.
Stephanie, I'm gonna pull Stephanie in there.
Yeah,
Because
What you gonna do? I haven't heard from Stephanie.
We want to hear from them.
Let's bring in some legal thoughts here, Stephanie. Not that Joanne's not going to give legal thoughts either, but you're being quiet, and that's unusual for Stephanie. So, have at it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to wade into all this. I was sitting here going through a political, what can I say that's politically okay, right? Actually, what Joanne said early on I really resonated with me, that I see the appointment of Rohit to this position. First, it was a bit of a puzzle. And what I mean is, it's not surprising to me that somebody would put him in a position like this, especially a state like California on consumer protection issues. That's not what's puzzling. What's puzzling to me is why now, for what purpose, and in that role, like as John pointed out early on, it's such a broad scoping position. Why are we reorganizing? I mean, good Lord, DFPI just barely got its licenses issued, right? And is starting to examine, and now it's got a lawsuit by ACA for the exorbitant costs that are coming out. So it just seemed very strange to me. And I think, Joanne, you're onto something, that it's political pivoting. It's trying to hold an olive branch to the Elizabeth Warrens, seeing where we're coming into a significant consequential election, both in California and then nationally with the midterms, being able to keep friends, but also adjust those friendships depending on what the voters indicate that they want. I hear a lot of people talking about, oh, this is going to happen, or this is going to happen, or that's going to happen, or this is going to happen. And I feel like in the last few election cycles in particular, we're not getting it. The polls aren't getting it. There's something that's not getting picked up on within the way that we're measuring consumer sentiment, voter sentiment. So to me, this is a smart play, but not a real play. It's keeping your cards close, but having lots of different strategies. It still is puzzling to me what they plan to accomplish. I think, Rob, you pointed out, if a Republican wins, of course they're going to part ways with Chopra in this position. Part of the reason I was quiet earlier is if California, I feel like the Democrats are not reading what people want in a way that is resonating, and they keep messing that up. And there's a real, I'm not saying the Republicans are getting it right either. I think they got it right for a little bit, and now they've gone off in a direction that I also don't think, what did you say, John? The oligarchs, right? They've gone off that way. Consumers are not being heard. Affordability is what really is a key concern. Bringing in AI, the fear about it taking jobs. And, you hear people talking about AI could enable us to have a universal wage and plenty of food and plenty of electricity and all this wonderful, just sounds like heaven. But humans have a way of not making the right decisions to realize those types of communally beneficial decisions. So I just think it's more posturing. I don't understand it. Steve, you wanted some legal thoughts. I don't have any I guess his appointment's legal. And if the Republicans take the governorship in November, his firing will be illegal. And there you go. I don't get it. It was strange.
Yeah, it really was strange over the basic. Newsom is in his last few months of being governor.
Yeah.
That's basically it. I mean, now is not the time. If there was a problem or there's something that needed to be resolved, you needed to resolve it 4 years ago. And basically everything that's happened in California is pointing in the opposite direction. There is a change coming in California, whether it's Eric Swalwell was the answer by the Democrats, and then apparently he wasn't. And now that it's the former AG who was in charge of education, the DOE, and now he's running into financial issues. It's just they keep running into issues upon issues, and so the question just becomes: California's just become this political. Nobody knows what it's become, and who knows where it's going to go. But all of a sudden, debt collection is kind of falling as one of those things that it's going to have a huge effect on the industry, particularly if California becomes so stringent.
But how much more stringent can California become? We're already.
It could be New York.
I mean, they could be New York, but
They could be New York City.
well, I was going to say they could be New York City, because New York
yes.
State, depending on who you are, isn't as bad as California, because Rosenthal's so much broader and also loops in small business.
Commercial.
They could, but I don't think Chopra is going to drive that.
So
That's
I've
not-
got the
CFPB.
very, based on what Stephanie said, listening through it, I was reminded of Ebenezer Scrooge's comment. And
Are you calling me grumpy today, John? It is my.
oh no, what you said is brilliant and it's hopeful. And that is, what did Ebenezer say to the ghost? There's more of gravy than grave about you, whatever you are. It's maybe it's not as dire as people think, but like, even if Rohit were this consummate, really skilled organizational structure expert and manager, which I don't think he is, he's more of a policy idea guy. Like, there's too much to do, and there's such a target rich environment. Housing is the big ticket item. AI and data governance is big ticket. What does he have time to do in 7 months? And then again, in some respects, I guess we all are that Cocker Spaniel. We can't always bite whatever we want to bite publicly, because we're governed by things. Don't know. The only certainty here is I think that Rohit thinks that Gavin Newsom is going to be the next president of the United States. That's what I'm pretty sure that's what Rohit thinks, and it's a smart play on his part to do that. But at the same time, one comment I wanted to make today is, and Steve, I hope this doesn't take it in a direction you didn't want it to go, but we're in this crazy upside down world where I would argue that Rohit, in his time at the CFPB and what he did, especially after the general election, has caused more consumer harm than the 15 biggest bad actors over the last 15 years. And weirdly, Russell's vote has spawned more consumer financial protection regulation than Rohit could have even dreamed about. Like, what the hell is going on here?
Well,
Let's argue.
I don't know. It would. I mean, because he did 1071 and 1033, which he cobbled together after. I don't know if I would agree with that, John. I mean, if you think, I don't know if I would agree with.
Okay, so what did Rohit do in his
I
two?
would agree with
It's still
Rohit.
here.
Well, I 100% agree with everything you said about Rohit. I mean, he did.
But
But as far as Russell Vogt, I mean, I don't think he's done anything except waste a lot of money.
pardon my lack of clarity here, but when I say regulation, I wasn't confining myself to federal. When you look at what's going on with the states, and when you look at
That's fine.
the stated reason,
That makes sense.
the stated reason for Gavin Newsom appointing Rohit was in reaction to sort of this dismantling of the federal regulatory
I would agree.
structure. And then I was going to say the other thing is we've created this environment, and maybe it's not all Rohit's fault, where every new law gets sued in one district in Texas, where that district in Texas, they basically can circumvent the will of Congress or any other damned entity going forward. And that's the point that David Silverman and Jason Brown make in their paper, is we're in this brave new world where regulators actually might need some protection in their ability to pass responsible APA conforming rules.
Well, I mean, to me, it's just, this is what happens when it's been 12 years, when you develop an agency that's unchecked, unfunded, and doesn't have a commission. I mean, FTC's been around for 70 years.
Everybody keeps missing the opportunity to change that.
That's
Amen.
right.
Everybody on both sides.
Exactly. Except the Supreme Court, is in the room to do that.
Which is also why now, why wouldn't you sue on every single thing they implement?
Exactly. And it's not lost on me as a market when I ran markets, and it wasn't lost on my team that even a tiny disclosure rule imposes some cost on industry, right? Every regulation causes some cost. I'll tell you what, you mentioned Bill Maher earlier, Steve, we really need a lot of new rules. Like when it comes to the presidency, there were a lot of norms that people just, they thought presidents would always follow these.
Right.
And
Right.
I think in this paper from Brookings, they talk about new rules here. Russell Vogt basically said, we're not going to really supervise, or we're not going to spend any time on non-banks, the ability of what the CFPB does and does not do. There was a lot of discretionary there. So Congress could actually institute some new rules around that. I am so cynical. Actually, no, I'm just so unhopeful about a commission saving anything, just because of where we're at with the FTC and where we're at with the FCC currently, where basically the Supreme Court's going to decide if the president can fire the opposing party members of a commission. And then we wind up with basically a highly politicized commission sitting on top of everything. And I mean, that's a nightmare world. I mean, I think the FTC is actually not done anything too crazy. Quite frankly, I think most of what they've done is pretty good. But the FCC is in a really weird position right now, where it feels like it's sort of the future of these commission run of regulators, if something doesn't change. So I think we need a lot of new rules.
See, I don't know that I want any rules. I mean, we have to have some rules. But I need
with more.
That will play with your base. That will absolutely play with your base.
Yeah, it does. Stephanie, 2020. I don't know what year. No, what I mean is after Loper Bright. Look what's happening right now with whether or not the TCPA applies to texts.
Yeah.
We have 2 circuit courts of appeal. I want to say it was a 5th, and then more recently, what was the other one? There's another one. I wrote a blog on it, and I'm blanking. There are 2 circuit courts of appeals and a whole bunch of district courts in the 11th Circuit saying it doesn't, because we don't care what the FCC ruling that's been in place for a while said. Plain language, Congress, do your job, right? Which they're not going to do their job.
Right? No one's not, especially in election year.
No, and John, thinking about Reg F, right, which was I think a really significant rule that helped move forward collections into the 21st century, right? And it was necessary. There are parts that I think are really helpful. There are parts that I'm sure people would love to have jettisoned, and everything in between on both sides, right? But now when I'm talking to clients, it's like, how much do I care about Reg F? I don't know, because even before Loper Bright, we saw courts, there was Southern District of Florida, there were a couple others saying, I don't care about what this model form is. I still find it confusing or misleading in this other way. And it's eroding these efforts to have rules, to have guardrails, to have some basic ways of approaching things that I think help keep a compliant and fair environment. And I find people say, I find myself always now having to go, well, this is what the rule says, or this is what the FCC has said. And I'm not ready to tell anybody to just assume that the text isn't covered by the FCC. It's potentially catastrophic if a court disagrees with you, and they will. But it's a different world where I'm thinking about things not through how do we avoid litigation, but I find myself often saying, if this doesn't work, how would you challenge it? And that's why rules right now, I'm not sure what the value is, because I really think it's going to be in the eye of the beholder from a judge. So we're at a period of time where we actually need Congress, in my humble opinion, to come in and look at some of these things and say, okay, we're going to amend the TCPA to say it applies to text or not. Like, there are some rules. There are some things that are out there, some of them for a very long time, and we've built compliance structures around them. All we got to do is codify it. That's all we got to do. And that's what I think the Supreme Court was saying, is there's 3 branches. And one branch in particular hasn't been doing its job for a really long time. And I don't mean that as a political statement. I mean that as they're just grandstanding till the next election, using money to keep their job.
You just said the rule of law, which arguably might be one of this country's biggest assets, is under attack by the very system that's supposed to protect it.
Yep.
Like it's eating itself. It's incredibly depressing. And you're exactly right.
Grumpy today.
And Loper Bright cuts both ways. And again, Humphrey's executor, if it goes the way I think it's going to go, you've sort of taken out another pillar of semi-certainty that less responsible business operate. Like, ooh, boy.
Congress would actually just say,
I was in a good mood, Stephanie.
Here's where everything stands. Like, think about what people are arguing about right now, and what we're hearing. They're frustrated with, overuse of executive authority, right? We've heard that going all the way back to, gosh, I was going to say the Obama administration, but maybe it even goes back to,
it probably goes back to Bush.
Right, like Bush too with Iraq.
So the executive orders, how many are issued?
We had, line item veto. I remember that under the Clinton administration. We're also hearing complaints about judges, a single judge, a district court judge in a place in Texas or somewhere else, being able to, with one stroke of the pen, implement nationwide injunctions and different things, right? So we're hearing lots of frustration that one unelected person or one elected person, but who is in an executive role, not in necessarily a lawmaking or law enforcement role in the same way, are getting to do whatever they want. And we're having this pendulum swing where Congress they're all telling Congress, if you don't like this, then pass a law.
Fix it.
And that's not anywhere in the discussion anywhere.
No, here's one again. I keep going back to this paper, but I'm a fan of it. Have Congress mandate that the associate director level on down are career feds. When I joined the Bureau in 2014, there was one political, it was Richard Cordray. Okay, when Mulvaney came in, there were a few additionals added, but each division was run by a career federal staffer with huge institutional knowledge. So take supervision and enforcement. That should never be a political appointee. But under Rohit, Laura Salas and Eric Halpern were in effect political appointees. But it occurred to me, like, I was horrified at one point when I was realizing Julie Morgan was running research, markets, and regulation. There was not a single person there thinking about the institutional and future strength of RMR in terms of staffing and capabilities and databases. And it's like, when you're all run by politicals, no division within a federal regulator gets any stronger or better. It just basically swings with the wind. Like, you had the swing at the top with Cordray and Kathy Kraninger. But then when you add politicals over each division within the Bureau, it makes it even more so. And that's something Congress could do its job and just say, wait a minute, there need to be new rules around DFA. There are some things you can't do. You can't just stick politicals in over these positions that are incredibly powerful. I mean, you can almost argue that the head of supervision and enforcement at the CFPB is almost as powerful as the director.
I would even say more so, frankly. I mean, if they get a blessing from the director on whatever angle they're going on, the directors, they have a lot of latitude.
I mean, I want somebody like again, she like her or not, Peggy Toohey, who ran supervision, was a very seasoned, lifelong career executive with immense institutional knowledge from the Federal Trade Commission before she came over to the Bureau. And I think she's somebody also that gained the institutional knowledge, I think, in the debt collection space, that by and large, unless they were credit reporting, they probably were going to get a decent exam. Like, they weren't going to go off the rails anywhere for the most part. And then she also had the institutional knowledge to know that when they did go off the rails over credit reporting, it was probably the credit repair companies played some contributory role in that going off the rails. That's lost when these are politicals. And again, that's something ought to be kind of non-controversial. Like, it almost goes back to you shouldn't be able to point your friends and neighbors to run your agency, but that's exactly what happened with Rohit.
I think that the problem has been that everyone's forgotten about checks and balances. Not started when they enacted when they did the Bureau. I mean, the Bureau, it started there, and that was under an Obama administration. And the problem has always been that, power grabs are really easy in Washington, but they forget when there's a power grab that, that political party that's doing it, if they're able to do it, the other party's going to be able to do it too. And I think that that's something that, I'm not a huge fan of the Supreme Court, but sometimes they surprise me. And, I think that putting their political beliefs sometimes aside, you have a lot of textualists on the Supreme Court who keep trying to go back to, all granted it's 250 years old, but going back to the basic fundamentals of checks and balances. And you're right. I mean, they have said they haven't even been subtle about it, that Congress needs to do its job. So is everybody feeling, are agencies bad things, or are they bad things because of a product of a bad Congress? And to me, it's a product of a bad Congress. And until that gets fixed, all the unintended consequences are state level enforcement, agencies that are running all amok. I will say, I'll go back to the FTC again. I mean, John, you talk about aggressiveness. I think the FTC has been super aggressive right now. I mean, they're doing it. They are doing serious enforcement actions.
I have not seen a presser from this FTC that I disliked. I mean, they're really going after bad actors. They're going after these exorbitant ticket fees.
They have a mandate, and they've been doing it. Now, we can argue about firing commissioners, which I don't think is a great idea. We'll see what happens with Humphrey Specter. But FTC has run the way the FTC has run for the past 70 years, regardless of who is in power. And, remember, is it Chris? Oh God.
Chris Mafarage?
No, well, Chris Mafarage is running it now, but it was the guy who was at Covington. He's going back.
Andrew Smith.
Andrew Smith. I mean, he's run it through iterations, and he's been involved in the FTC through various iterations of administrations and has run it like this. And that's the way these agencies need to be, in a very kind of linear way, and, doing, what their charter and their mandate requires them to do. And when the Bureau came in 12 years ago, it blew that up. And so my concern is, to your point, John, if Rohit comes in California and starts, pushing all these other agency heads around, I think there's going to be more confrontation than there is going to be action or any kind of productive type of regulation or whatever it is their intent to do here. I mean, I feel sorry for the guy that runs DFPI. I mean, now all of a sudden he reports to somebody else. He lost his job, really. He's got oversight over, someone else has oversight over him. Not saying he did a great job, but he was running the agency. Now all of a sudden someone's going to tell us something different.
Presumably, if Rohit can be that effective, and that's really, I think he'll struggle. I mean, he had a lot more power as the director of the CFPB, and then he was able to put politicals over most of the divisions. I don't think he can do that there. He can't really fire the head of the DFPI. I'm pretty sure he can't do that. He can't fire the head of the DFPI.
Fire him, but the head of the DFPI has to report to him.
Mm-hmm. And it's likely to be very unsatisfying for those heads of agencies, and therefore they could resist. I don't think any of them signed up to be basically micromanaged, and so it's going to be tough for Rohit to do things other than signal.
Yeah. And they can ignore him. That's why it comes back to, I think it's just a political play to keep your friends close, right? And California is
closer.
Well, and California, along with New York, in particular, they really are trying to come in, at least is just my perception, and say,
You're right.
We're going to do things the way it was done. And, this CFPB, this administration in Washington, they're not protecting you. They don't care about you, whatever the case may be. Both parties are trying to make a play towards populism in their own ways. But I wonder if, sure, we'd all like less fees, right? And John, I haven't gotten any of my concert ticket fees back. I'm very upset about that. I guess I didn't qualify. But in any event, fees are not the enemy necessarily. Fees are sometimes, not always, but sometimes necessary to provide products and support compliance functions and create a robust enterprise that can meet the needs of not just people with an 800 plus credit score and money in the bank, but take the risk that comes with other parts of the credit spectrum, if you will.
Amen.
And I'm not convinced that the Democrats want that.
Yeah, risk-based pricing is absolutely a thing. And again, if they said they didn't want it, I'd say, well, let's go for clarity then. Then the fee is X, and the fees based on your score band is Y.
And this isn't hard. Like, to me, I'm not an economist. They wouldn't even let me take those classes, right? Like, I took one, it wasn't great. That's not how my brain works. But to me, I don't think this is necessarily a policy issue. We can show what it costs, and there's lots of data on it. We can show what it costs to offer a free checking account. We can show what it costs to offer buy now, pay later. We can show what it costs to offer other types of non-prime credit products, if you will. We can show that there are costs associated with it. But companies are also needing to make a profit from them. So there needs to be a balance. And what I've seen is we just get things lobbed out there by one side of the aisle. We'll just put a cap, $8. That's what you can charge for a late fee, right? Or we'll just say after a certain period of time, your debt's dead. Too bad. And they're not realistic about what that means and how that constricts credit for everyone. And I don't think it's bothersome. On the other side, they come in, though, and just jettison it all, and it looks like they're not concerned at all about fees, and it's going to be a heyday of charge whatever you can. So bringing it back to California, I think California actually has an opportunity, if they want to weigh in on a couple of things, not everything, but a couple of things. And I think fees, we all agree, is one where they will have something to say, and come out with some sort of principled approach that is reflective of nobody likes fees, but fees to some degree are necessary. And can we strike a balance that's appropriate in a capitalist-based economy?
No, that's where
that takes time.
California
should be hard.
California could use markets like markets and Office of Research like approach to them. And again, I think that on the other side, I'll argue a little bit with you, Stephanie. The the fees have become this wonderful thing for the chief marketing officers of various companies to realize that, hey, there's a lot of wiggle room in what we can throw into the fees area. And it's one thing Americans are just damn tired of, like resort fees, okay, at hotels. I mean, I think I checked into a Days Inn and there was a resort fee on the damn thing. I'm like, oh no, hell no, this has gone too far. But they're way too convenient. So you want sort of an economic basis for this. And at the same time, let's look at overdraft fees.
And John,
mean,
I think it's fair to
if-
ask for an economic basis for it. I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I
I mean, overdraft fees were sky high, and then I think as banks watched, I give Chime a lot of credit for changing the behavior of some of the big banks, but those fees weren't absolutely necessary to give those checking accounts. Those fees came down incredibly over time, and then a lot of the banks, like I think every member of the Consumer Bankers Association, I think they dropped them entirely because they realized they were probably making excess profit there. They didn't need that to manage demand deposit accounts. So that to me, that's almost a proof. That's a sloppy proof point, but a proof point nonetheless that those fees probably weren't necessary. I always thought it was interesting on credit card late fees that everybody was at the max when I think the Card Act says you can go over or you can go under, but you just have to do the math. I think it always said that. But I mean, everybody went to that major cap because they realized the consumer would pay it. Except that you saw things like I think the Apple credit card came in when Goldman Sachs was running it, and they had zero late fees, but they also realized they were dealing with super prime customers who cared way more about their FICO score than any fee. So, listen, sloppy actors looking to maximize profits without adding additional value. Did they take advantage of the fact they could slide some fees in there? Oh, hell yes. In the mortgage context, where you're getting a $500,000 mortgage to buy a house, if somebody increases the cost of a tri-merge credit report from $5 to $85, I mean, given the context, nobody's going to say much about that. And again, I think we're at a point now with this K-shaped economy where everybody's tired, and I am an aggressive zero tipper when somebody at a Circle K wants a tip for buying a piece of roller food. It's just Americans are exhausted, and I think politicians tapping into that, it's a big thing.
I think it's interesting you brought up Circle K. I don't think that the person working at the counter cares one way or the other. And I've been testing it as somebody who waited tables and bartended all through college, right? And I consider myself a good tipper. A lot of them will actually just tell me to skip by the screen, or they'll skip by it before they spin it around.
May well not be getting the money.
It's companies putting those in to supplement the wages. And I don't know the solution to any of this, but if you tell people that there's safety in numbers, to your point about credit card late fees, right? So if everybody's charging the late fee, nobody's out there on their own. It comes back to the rule of law. If we want to have rules, Congress should, there's plenty of things we need Congress to clarify or where clarification could be useful. And we're not focused on that at all. Neither party is focused on that at all nationally. Or, in the states, it is easier, I think, it's a smaller constituency. It can be a more homogenous constituency than nationwide. If you do think back 250 years ago, we were founded on a union of states, and states are supposed to have really, I think, the primary, I can't believe I'm about to be like a states' rights person, but they're the primary engine for moving forward and innovating and doing lots of different things. Now we're seeing, though, some of the challenges of that. Some states are saying we like these things. Some states are saying we don't like these things. And what I hope is that at the state level, regulators, legislatures, et cetera, that I do think have the ability to move. Look at New York City with Mamdani and some of those policies. I hope they work. I hope we're all proven wrong and that it is actually affordable, effective, and makes progress. I hope so. right? I hope that people are thoughtful about that because there are some opportunities to try some new things out. Get rid of fees and prove that the companies didn't go bankrupt if that's what you want to do. Or do things that companies say will make eventually cause them to exit your market. See if they do. Figure out what could work. Use it as sort of a laboratory. But that's also not the environment that the federal government wants us to be in with some of these things like AI. And so it's tricky.
Yeah, no, as far as New York City as a library, and there is a K-shaped economy there. Okay, you've got a lot of people that if blenders leave the market, they're not going to care. They're not even going to notice. But then you've got a lot of folks there that are absolutely going to get just hammered. I mean, unintended consequences of bad rulemaking, they hammer responsible industry in terms of cost, but they're big boys and girls. They'll exit the market, but the people who have to live in those areas that have to basically bear the cost burden, I mean, they pay the real price of bad rulemaking.
Yeah, the unintended consequences. I'm taking notes as you guys are talking. I'm a student of this podcast, by the way, and that's what I was going
You
to
need to find
chime in on.
you need to find a better school, and this school is not accredited. There's no federal money for this.
Unlike Stephanie, I enjoyed the economics class in college immensely. I turn into a bit of a hard-nosed capitalist, and believe that really our job is to have some guardrails around the capitalism, but not to have such a heavy hand. I think Steve, at your conference, I enjoyed Andrew Nagiri's talks. He opened up your conference a few weeks back, showing how way back in the day, back when I was a collector in 1999, under the tyrant John McNamara back in Kansas City. Those were the days, right?
That was
It was
bad.
Massachusetts, and that was it. That's all we worried about as collectors. Oh yeah, Massachusetts, that's a tough one. And now you look at the number of regulations that have just popped up. You kind of showed like over time now all these states. Massachusetts is just one of it's just nothing compared to what New York City and California are doing these days. And that as all of these regulations have increased, and what's the trend? It is consumer harm, like that you can, an economist like Andrew can map it, and they say, like, you don't like my numbers, sorry, but truth be told, all of these you're trying to fiddle with these knobs of capitalism. And you see what happens with you try to run things as a communist economy, where you say, well, here's the way that it's going to work, and you're going to have this much grain, and you're going to have this much iron, and we're going to tell you what the price of this and that should be. The more control you have over the economy, the less the invisible hand can do its thing, and prices can set themselves appropriately, fees can set themselves appropriately, and that if a credit card company or a credit issuer can attract customers by having lower fees and offering a better product, it's magic. It's capitalism. It works sometimes, but like Stephanie talked about AI and consumer protection. Consumer protection needs to be there, and the oligarchy needs to be kept in check. Don't get me wrong, and that I feel should be the extent of what the politicians are doing, but instead they're trying to fiddle with every little knob and trying to tighten up. Oh well, you got to get rid of this and limit that, and all of that ends up having unintended consequences because they're not running things. They're not asking the economists. The economists have the numbers. Guys like Andrew, they're like, I'll show you the numbers. Here's what's going to happen. It's not going to be what you expect. Just like with what Chopra did, all the heavy-handed stuff he did, and all the backlash, because this is what an economist could have predicted, but they're not asking those guys.
Well, I think that's kind of where you run into the mess. You kind of, let's go full circle here. Part of the biggest mess that you've got is if you have rules and regs, you got to make them simple. You can't have a 20,000 page bill that goes to Congress that says it's got every little emphasis on every person that's voting yes for it. They have to have something that they want, or they'll vote no. You can't have Congress run that way. Congress has to be run in an efficient manner, and it's not being run in an efficient manner. If you don't have
It's all party lines.
yeah, it just
You vote against the party. Oh my gosh.
you can't. You
gotta toe
can
that
no
line.
longer. Right. You can't vote against because you'll get thrown out. And it doesn't matter if you're on the right or if you're on the left. If you don't stick with your party and you do, then they'll get rid of you. And it used to be 75% of us are moderates, and you couldn't really tell the difference between a moderate Republican and a moderate Democrat. And I think we haven't changed because moderates don't like high prices. Moderates don't like rules, regs, and stuff that control our lives. But the problem is somehow the moderate voice has been erased, and you either have to be extreme one or extreme the other. And it's killing us because we don't just go back to the common sense. If a bill was 3 pages long and you could actually read it and it made sense to do it, then you do it. If it makes sense to collect someone by sending them a text, then you just say, okay, texts are okay. That's the bill we're voting on. Nothing else, nothing that's going to increase your freeway or your tollway or anything else along those lines. It should be in the bill. It should be texts are okay, recollect. Yeah, and that's that again, common sense. But nobody has any common sense in that little area of DC. And what's really kind of a shame, not to go off on a tangent, but it used to be attorneys generals were non-political. They were either coming from a crime enforcement area or they were coming from a political side. They all became political as they moved up the ladder and wanted to become governor, because that's what AG stands for, aspiring governor. But when they were attorneys generals, they enforced the law. And that's kind of when you start looking at someone like Colorado, that a law says, hey, we're going to regulate AI, and their own attorney general says, I don't know how, if we can actually do this, then the alarm should be going off. And with that, we kind of moved from what we all started about with Chopra and stuff. We kind of look at AI, and if there's 1,450 plus bills that are floating out there, including one from the president as an executive order that says leave AI alone, how are we going to enforce, or how are we going to have AI, which is supposed to be a tool to help people do things like debt collections? It's a great tool for debt collections. How are we going to utilize that? And, I'm going to change the topic just a little bit to talk about AI and see what you guys say, because debt collection in AI is a great tool. But if you're going to regulate that tool, how do you regulate it? And how do you regulate it across the state lines, where one state says, yeah, go for it, and then the next state says, no, you can't, and that person happens to live in a third state? Good God, you're back to, again, the same thing about, can you call someone, can you not call someone? Can you text someone, can you not text someone? Can you AI collect them, or can you not? You guys come up with something here.
States' right, Stephanie. You want to weigh on that?
Not really. But yeah, I mean, that's exactly the world we're in.
Preemption's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean,
In some cases.
preemption. And Steve, we didn't just overnight lose common sense or lose the moderate. I don't actually think the electorate in this country, by the way, I've done very scientific studies, like on planes and in airports and at conferences, right? Talking to people who see things differently than me. I don't actually think it's changed all that much. But Citizens United, that decision when we had uncapped amounts of money that can go to special PACs is really, it's not the only thing that led to this, but in my mind, that was a watershed decision that then made really the parties have complete control over the message, the candidates, and so forth. And that set us up, in my humble opinion, very well for an influx of money from the Elon Musks of the world and everybody else who has, billions, and even I saw his IPO might get him to be the first trillionaire. They can buy their agendas on either side. And, don't forget, Trump used to be a Democrat. I guess that wasn't working, so now he's a Republican. I mean, that is how we got here. And, Rob, that's not capitalism. John, that's not the founding fathers, right? This is just where we are today. And unfortunately, we have a lot of work to do.
And that's the John Roberts court too, right?
The rule of law in this country has been so deeply eroded that it is, as a lawyer, very terrifying to me.
Yeah, John Roberts' legacy is going to be really interesting. I mean, my God.
Yeah. We are certainly in interesting times. But this has been a fun hour-long rant,
Yeah.
helpful to our listeners.
It was cathartic, if nothing else.
cathartic.
I don't know.
Well,
I don't-
well, not to jump off the thing, but we do want to thank CSS Impact for sponsoring our 1 hour rant on everything that we wanted to talk about today. So thank you.
We
to
should
CSS
give them a
Impact.
takeaway, though. Like, I already.
Yeah, no. And by the way, Rob, if I knew you felt that way about me back when you were in the Kansas City office, I would have fired you. Just kidding.
Yeah,
Just
see?
kidding.
Everyone was scared of John. John's going to come to the office, check us out. Hey, everyone, tidy up your desks. Here comes John.
Oh, you just have to love the way things go and the way things are. We're not going to resolve. We're not going to fix Congress. We're not going to fix the courts. We're not going to fix most anything. I mean, the best thing you can do is continue.
vote. You have to.
You must vote. Everybody needs to vote,
And that's first.
it doesn't. Right. It doesn't matter how you vote. You just need to express your opinion, and you need to you vote. You vote
and
for
vote everything. You've got to vote in local elections. You got to vote your school board. You got to vote your state. You have to go to all your primaries. You've got to.
And listen, even more specific, vote the freaking primaries. That's where the crazies make it to the final contest. So you're sort of left with really a substandard candidate on both sides. But you know what? Most moderates don't vote in the primaries. Guess who votes in the primaries?
the extremes.
Well, but part of that, I mean, to Stephanie's point, I think Citizens United is a huge problem, and it's probably what we hear. But there also needs to be open primaries, and not just I mean, I'm a registered independent. I can't vote in primaries, and why I should be able to, because I think there's good candidates potentially on both sides, and I should have an opportunity to vote for them. So, I mean, there's, we'll save the next podcast to figure out the physics to all of this. But
I think a get out the vote message is a good one to close on, though, isn't it? Research the candidates, right? Don't just vote party lines, straight, just whatever billboard you saw on your way to the voting booth, right? Do your research and try to find someone that's
and engage them, talk to them. They go to zillions of town halls, especially during primaries. They're in your neighborhood during primaries. They're knocking on doors. Talk to them.
I find when I talk to them, even if they're not somebody that I thought I would be supportive of, I'm often pleasantly surprised.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was with the ACA in Washington last week, and it was encouraging to hear from both the senator, a couple of senators, and from like Andy Barr, that there's still a lot of communication back and forth. It's across the party lines, like what we see on television, what we see on Fox News or MS Now is basically a really exaggerated version. But one of them said a Republican congressman said he gets more texts each week from his Democratic side friends than he does his Republicans. And that goes on. I mean, it's always going on, I think, at the Senate's level, but again, the fact it's going on in the House too. There's, I guess, the more you get involved, there are some signs. There's probably more reason to hope than to mope. But boy, I could not agree more about your comment about Citizens United. Lots of things helped us go off the rails, but that was probably the biggest single point of failure.
Yeah, well, I will. I'll toss this out here, and then everyone can kind of. We're going to wrap this up. But I know they did a study, and this, it wasn't anything official or something, but they had AI try to run a coffee shop. I believe it was in Norway, and AI failed miserably in trying to manage a coffee shop in Norway, and I don't know if that was part of programming issues or part of the problem, but AI is not the all tell all. Everything is going to be fixed through AI. AI is a tool, and I think our industry is utilizing that tool for a lot of good reasons, and I think the consumer benefits from that tool because not all consumers want to talk to a collector. Not all consumers want to deal with a collector. If AI can help resolve some of those issues, that's great. It should be utilized as a tool. And that's basically it. It's not replacing collectors. It's becoming more efficient at what we do. Again, I'll pass this around, but again, thank you to CSS Impact for sponsoring this 1 hour. We fixed the government. Yay!
Yeah, we figured it out.
Let Joanne
Yeah,
vote. Open primaries.
Primaries.
But with that, I'm going to pass it all around. Let everybody throw their final thoughts, and then we'll come to a conclusion for this great hour. So let's start with Rob. I'll let you open up the books, and then we'll pass it around from there. So Rob, your final
Yeah,
thoughts.
sure. Yeah, sure. Final thoughts. I like the closing on a bit of a positive get out the vote notion that that maybe we can turn this ship around a little bit. I think John, you mentioned the Washington visits, right? Getting involved with your trade organizations and like Joanne said, meeting some of these candidates, meeting some of these folks face to face who you might not feel have your economic best interest in mind from my hard nosed capitalist mindset, and maybe give a little bit of pushback and have a conversation that is entirely within your capability, right, as a voter.
I think John should run for office.
As well, you should be.
Let's have John run for office.
Oh, I'm the captain of the fan club for the McNamara fan club, by the way.
Thank you for that.
McNamara for Senate.
I promise not to tweet.
What state would you be running in again, John? I can't remember. No.
It's
Kansas.
Okay, Kansas. Okay.
Oh, Kansas. Okay, you're on that side. I thought it was gonna be Missouri, but no, if you're in Kansas, okay, there you go.
This was fun, everybody. Keep
Oh,
on keeping
there
on.
I have a final word too, and it's, believe it or not, it's a PSA. And this goes back to a lot of things we talked about. When you're in DC and you want to meet with the CFPB, I implore you to ask for the relevant senior program manager by name. I think what's happened is both Mark Calabria and to some degree Jeff are meeting with industry and if you don't ask for Gandhi or you don't ask for Chris Kukla or Laura Udis, like there's really nobody in the meeting to ensure the continuity of your message. Or that can put it into the context, relative context for them. Like Calabria had a lot of meetings that markets never knew about. That information, whatever was shared, is just gone with Mark. Jeff's very busy. He's got a huge waterfront. But what I think I found is that if you ask for the senior program manager to be in the meeting, especially if they're DC based or can be, they'll be in the meeting. So they'll be taking notes, and your meeting will live on past your exit from the building. And I think that's really important. And again, it's somebody like a Laura Udis who sort of understands that earned wage access is materially different than payday lending, and that $3 per 100 versus 15 per 100 is a huge difference for the consumer. You need that kind of institutional knowledge in context in those meetings. So again, please ask for the relevant senior program manager in those meetings. Because if you want one thing, no matter how crazy the CFPB gets, you want a strong markets office. And I would actually say a strong research and regulations office as well.
It's a good thing to do. Joanne, your last word?
I guess to our friends in California, we've gone down a rant in this podcast. I wouldn't change anything that you're doing. You're all doing great. And keep us informed should you hear from the BCSA or DFPI moving forward. That's really important information to see how they're going to look at our industry. I agree with John and Steve. I think that collection is the low-hanging fruit, unfortunately, that they are going to be looking at. It's the easiest thing.
But it's also not a big headline. It's not as big a headline as AI. So maybe that will save the debt collection industry from unfair scrutiny.
But there's been some interesting consent orders that have been issued by DFPI in the Yoda situation. I think that settlement is also on the bullseye there. But keep us informed. But stay the course. That's as I always say. Don't change anything that you're doing, good or bad. I wouldn't start overhauling policies just because this agency is being stood up. Just stay the course and keep us, as I said, keep us all informed.
Awesome. With that, we're going to go ahead and sign off for this month on the Credit and Collection News Quadcast. With our four members, John, Joanne, Stephanie, and Rob, I'm Steve Ruderman with Credit and Collection News. thank you very much for listening. We see you guys out there. And if you guys have a hot topic that you want us to argue over, talk about on there, make sure you send that in on Credit and Collection News. With that, we are adjourned, and we will get back together next month and hit it again, because we just keep solving all the issues, don't we, guys?
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, Steve.
With
Thanks,
that,
Steve.
thanks
Bye,
everybody.
guys.
Bye now.
Take care. Have a good week, everybody.